What's going on, YouTube? Chris Peterson here again with you. This is now the second edition of Tracking the Madness. This is my second bracket projection. I just now finished it. I just now put it together. This video will be the first place that anyone will have seen it. Then I'll post the actual detailed bracket projection to my Facebook notes as well. But this will be the first place that it'll actually be seen and heard and talked about. And I mentioned that I want this one to be a little bit more detailed, and they're going to get more detailed as the season goes along, because we're going to be breaking down bubble teams, all their cases. The conference tournament's going to get in full swing as the months go by. Once the calendar behind me turns to February in a few days. So exciting times ahead for college basketball. So again, I just got done putting this bracket together and where the teams are at and everything. So here's how this video is going to work. First, I'm going to mention my last four in, first four out. So these are always fluidly changing every single day and based on the results of the games that have gone on each day. So these are always fluid. These are always changing, as I'm sure you've seen over the years with other bracketologists like, dare I say, Joel Lenardi, who usually I never agree with, but that's a topic for another time. As I've mentioned on here countless times that Lenardi and I usually do not agree. But anyway, that is a fluid changing situation. So we'll mention those teams, the cases for all the bubble teams as well, why some are in, some are not in. Then I'll actually reveal the bracket, I'll reveal the bracket to you guys. Some of the matchups that are out there that I've put together right now. Different conference races, conference scenarios. We'll talk about those in this video. So a lot to get to. So let's go ahead and get right into it with this second edition. Okay, so right now, as of this moment, before the 7 o'clock game is just about to tip for tonight. So there's a lot of good matchups tonight that can obviously influence this projection and this bracket. But this is as of this moment, as of right now, where the RPIs are at, where the team stats are at, everything like that. This is at this moment. My current last four teams that'd be playing in the opening round in Dayton in these so-called play-in games. These four teams are it right now. The Richmond Spiders, RPI of 44. I have really been impressed by what I have seen from Richmond of late. They've been playing very well against some high-quality teams in the Atlantic 10 Conference. I think they're very close to being solidly in the field. They can get a quality win or two. I think Richmond, kind of like Providence right now, in the same boat. But I think Providence is solidly locked in right now because they got a second quality win. If Richmond can get another quality win under their belt, I think they'll be okay. But for now, Richmond barely on the last four in line. Tennessee. Tennessee is a very fluid team. They've looked impressive in some games, not so much in others. They got blown out by Florida one time last week, I think by 20-some points. So that certainly is concerning for Conzo Martin's squad. But I think for now they're okay. Their RPI is still at 55. That's still pretty strong. They play in a very strong SEC this year, so that helps them a bit. So, and again, we'll look at all these different bubble teams in their cases. But for now, I think Tennessee is still barely in. Southern Methodist is third in the last four in list with an RPI of 49. Very kind of an odd resume for SMU, but this is a Larry Brown coach team. We know Larry Brown's a legendary coach. I've seen SMU play this year. They're very hit or miss. They tend to have their good nights, their bad nights, again, kind of like Tennessee. But they're playing in a very good conference in the American Athletic. They did have a tough loss. Their first bad loss on their resume a couple nights ago against South Florida. So that really kind of hurt them a little bit. But for now, I think the resume is still strong enough. They're okay, but they can't afford any more bad losses down the road. And the last team in is Washington. And Washington is definitely kind of hanging by a thread with their situation because their RPI is kind of high at 71. They have a lot of good wins, but they also have a lot of bad losses. So Washington is really kind of a fluid team. with their situation. So they could be in the field one day and out of the field the next, depending on other people's results. So it just kind of depends what else happens. So that's the thing about some of these, is that it's just so fluid that it depends on what, not only what you do, but what your other people on the bubble do as well. So that's the thing about Washington. It's just kind of, up in the air depending on what happens. And again, we'll look at all these different teams when we go into the bubble teams cases. By the way, the stats that I get, the RPIs that I use, the stats that I get, great website, WarrenNolan.com. I know it's a plug, but WarrenNolan.com. I've always used them to help with my bracketology. I've always used their RPI, their stat information. It's a really reliable site, at least in my opinion. So that's what I use to make these projections. So good, at least to help me as a guide. So good job, WarrenNolan.com. My first 4 teams that are out right now, and this first team pretty much just got on this line last night because of their win over Kentucky, and that's LSU. The RPI obviously went dramatically up after this win. Now they also have a second top 50 win on the resume because Missouri now is in the top 50 in RPI, albeit barely. So for now, though, I'm not going to vault LSU into the field just yet. Again, before Missouri got in the top 50, this was their first real big win of any substance. And they won at home, which usually you get a better home thing anyway. It's kind of, if they had gone into Kentucky and went on the road, then maybe it would have looked a little better. But they were at home. And really, it was only their first real quality win, so we found out Missouri cracked the top 50. So for now, I'm barely keeping LSU out, but certainly a step in the right direction for the LSU Tigers, again, in a very strong SEC. Baylor is my second team out right now. Baylor has really spiraled into a big downfall of late. They started so strong, and now they're, I think, like 1-5, 1-6 now in the Big 12. Definitely taking a turn for the worst, if you will, in their terms of their tournament situation. Now, some bracketologists I've seen still have Baylor in the field, and so there again, that kind of a hit or miss situation. What are you looking for in these bubble teams? So it's kind of a tough call, but for now, I have Baylor out of the field. Heck, and I took them out. I had Baylor in, and then they lost to West Virginia last night, and that's what got Baylor out. So West Virginia is not exactly a high-profile caliber team right now, so that's what took Baylor out of the field for me. Dayton, another weird resume. The Dayton Flyers, a very weird profile for a Dayton team out of the A-10. They had some great wins at the start of the year, but lately they've really, again, kind of hit the skids in the A-10 a bit. So for now, Dayton's out of the field with a 64 RPI. Baylor, by the way, is at 69. And then Georgetown. Georgetown is right now my 4th team on my last 4-out list, or my first 4-out list, with a 72 RPI. Again, a very odd profile for Georgetown. But let me share with you guys the bubble teams that I'm considering right now and the cases we made for some of these teams. And we'll go conference by conference with each of these. Right now in the ACC, I have 6 teams in right now, and these are all pretty solid right now. I'd say these 6 are pretty close to locks at the moment. Obviously, Syracuse, undefeated. They're likely going to be a number 1 seed. Virginia has looked very impressive this year. 3 quality wins, including 2 over Florida State, which is very good. And they've beaten SMU, so good for Virginia. Pitt, even though Pitt has no quality wins to speak of, they've done well on the road. They're 3-1 on the road. They have 21 RPI, good SOS at 59, strength of schedule. So I think they're going to be okay. Duke, obviously, 5 top 50 wins. Florida State, 2 top 50 wins. And then you've got North Carolina. Now, North Carolina is again kind of one of those odd teams. But I don't see right now how you can exclude North Carolina from the field because, yes, they are 2-4 in the ACC, but they're 14th in strength of schedule. They have 4 top 50 wins, beating Richmond, Louisville, Michigan State, and Kentucky. And they only have the 1 bad loss to UAB. So now the road record is also concerning. They're 1-4 in true road games. But again, I think you can't overlook the fact that A, this is a strong ACC, B, the 4 top 50 wins. So I think for now, North Carolina is pretty safely in the field. But again, If they start hitting the skids again, that could change very fluidly. So, but for now, I think North Carolina is all right. The teams I'm considering from the ACC, and here's kind of my rule when it comes to considering bubble teams. What I call a bubble team, if you are if you are not leading your conference, but your RPI is anywhere from 1 to 79. Usually teams of RPIs of 80 or above don't get selected to the tournament. So I say if you're above an RPI of 80, you're at least in consideration. Now you might not be considered for one of those last four in, first four out spots, but at least you have enough of a case to be made for you with your RPI being so high that you're at least on the watch list, on the bubble potential list. So that's where I'm looking at it right now. So my teams on watch for the ACC include Wake Forest. They are 4-3 in conference, 14-6 overall, an RPI of 59. One quality win against Richmond, so that win's starting to look better and better because Richmond's doing so well. They have 5 top 100 wins. Now, they're only 1-4 on the road, so that, again, that's kind of troubling for Wake. But they have no bad losses. All 6 are losses that come against the RPI top 100, so that's at least positive. But Wake definitely needs more quality wins. I think that's really the only thing that's holding Wake Forest back right now. They probably have the best chance of these 4 teams I'm going to name here to get in, but they need more quality wins first. NC State, RPI of 65. The problem with NC State, no top 50 wins. 0-5 against the top 50. 3-3 on the road. No, they have one technically bad loss, but it's a team right now that would be in the tournament if the season were to end right now, which would be North Carolina Central, so who's leading their conference. So that's really not totally bad, but it's just because of the fact that the RPI is over 100. And again, that's another thing that I need to define on here, a bad loss. A bad loss for me is defined as if you are a major team, if you lose to someone outside the RPI top 100. If you're a conference leader, like a mid-major conference leader, then it's anyone either A with an RPI over 100 or B, someone with an RPI that is much, much lower than your RPI. So that's really what a bad loss is, at least to me. So NC State, they need more big-time wins as well. They're going to have a shot. Maryland is another one. Maryland has an RPI of 76, but they have a very strong strength of schedule at 26. So that's something that works in Maryland's favor. But again, the problem is 11-9 overall record, only 1-6 against the top 50. Their win came against their best win is against Providence. Not saying much right now. They're 1-4 in true road games, only 2-8 against the top 100. Maryland has a lot of work to do. Same with Clemson. Clemson's a head scratcher to me because the numbers don't work well for Clemson. Their RPI is 78, barely on the board. Their SOS is horrendous at 136. One top 50 win against Duke, but a bad loss to Auburn with an RPI almost in the 200s. 2-4 in true road games. And oh, by the way, the last time I watched Clemson play, they lost by at least 20 or 30 points. They couldn't buy a basket. So they do not look like a tournament team right now. They need some major, major league help. Now, when I'm talking about bubble teams, also, I need to say that I'm really going to be looking at teams that are like in the major conferences. A lot of these conferences you're going to find are only one-bid leagues. So we'll just go down here. America East, one-bid league. Now, the American Athletic Conference, I think, is definitely going to get multiple teams in. I think for sure, right now I don't have any of these teams on the watch on a bubble list, except for maybe Southern Methodist. But right now, I'd say there's 5 locks for sure from the American. Cincinnati, I'd say 4 locks. Cincinnati, Louisville, Memphis, and Connecticut. I think those 4 are pretty much solidly locked into the field from the American. Now, Southern Methodist is the only team right now. I have them in the field at the moment, but there's one of those last 4 teams in. Okay, where's the Memphis game? Oh, I bet you the Georgia Tech game got canceled. There's the Memphis game. So, speaking of Memphis, Memphis is on right now. Memphis is on ESPN2 right now, 7 o'clock. So, but um, but Cincinnati, Louisville, Memphis, UConn, I think those four are safely locked into the field. Southern Methodist is the only team that is, again, kind of fluid. Let's take a look at their resume. They're 5-3 in the conference. They're 16-5 overall. Their RPI is pretty good. It's at 49, but their strength of schedule is the big concern. 114. Normally, in an SOS in the plus 100s, you're not going to get a lot of real big-time looks, but the other numbers look okay. They've got a quality win against Connecticut. They do have now that bad loss to South Florida in the profile, but they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're 500 on the road at 4-4, and again, they have a winning record in a very strong conference. So for now, I think all of that works in SMU's favor, which is why I have them in the field, but it's very, very close. They're the third of my last four in, so that could certainly change at any time. The A10, I got 5 teams in right now, and I would say probably right now that at least 2 of these are locks. I would say St. Louis and UMass are locks right now. George Washington, I think for now they're okay. They've got 2 top 50 wins against Creighton, which is a great win, and VCU. So I think George Washington is going to be okay. I think Virginia Commonwealth is still going to be VCU is still going to be good. Their numbers are very solid. They have a quality win against Virginia, so I think they'll be okay. I mean, there might be still some work left to do, but I think for now they'll be okay. The team to watch, obviously, is Richmond. The Spiders are one of my last 4 in right now. But, again, a lot to like about Richmond's profile. Their numbers are going up. They're now in the top 15, both RPI and strength of schedule. They're 4-1 in the conference, which is always good to have a strong winning record. 14-6 overall. Quality win against Massachusetts. 4-3 in road games. Very good at a winning record in road games, so that's always a big thing. And they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. So Richmond Spiders, a lot to like about them right now. The 2 teams to watch out of the A10 are Dayton and St. Joseph's. Dayton, I told you about the Flyers profile. Very strange. Dayton is 1-4 in the conference. Not good. 13-7 record. That's good. RPI of 64, SOS of 67. That's about average, so a true bubble resume there. Now, again, they have 2 top 50 wins. They have 2 wins against Gonzaga and Cal. 2 very good wins, but here's the problem. 3 bad losses. 3 losses to teams outside the RPI top 100. They lost to Illinois State, USC, and then lost to Rhode Island a couple days ago. So right now, things are not really going the Flyers' way. They're 5-5 in their last 10, 3-3 on the road. Dayton's got to start really putting together a string of some good wins. Otherwise, their profile's going to look really sketchy come March, or make a deep run, maybe even in the conference tournament. The A-Sun is a 1-bid league. Now, the Big 12. Big 12 right now, I think 6 teams now are locks for sure. Kansas, obviously. Oklahoma. Texas, I think, now is a lock. There's a lot of uncertainty about Texas earlier in the year, or even 2 weeks ago. But now they got the wins over Iowa State and Kansas State. Plus, they have no bad loss on their resume. So I think Texas is safe. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Those 6, I think, are all safe from the Big 12. They have enough quality wins. The numbers are high, and they're doing well in their conference. I think those 6 are all safely in the field. The team of concern is Baylor. And again, Baylor's profile and their downfall of late really sketchy. They are 1-6 in conference. Never a good thing to be 1-6 in your conference. They're still 13-7, so that shows you how well they did in the non-conference. They were 12-1 in their non-conference, and now they've fallen 1-6 and they're 13-7. So, but that means their numbers are plummeting. Their RPIs dropped to 69. However, their strength of schedule is still 30, so that's still a good number there. 2 quality wins against Colorado and Kentucky. Now, the Colorado win is probably not going to look as good now because, again, Colorado has lost Spencer Dinwiddie, their top player for the season with a torn ACL. So that Colorado win might look not as good as it once did. The Kentucky win, though, still looks very strong. But 1 bad loss on the resume to Texas Tech, 0-3 in true road games. That does not help Baylor's cause either. So right now, I have Baylor out of the field. That loss to West Virginia also didn't help matters, though West Virginia is not a bad loss, excuse me, because of the fact that West Virginia's RPI is actually 81. So it's not a bad loss defined by those standards, but still I think it's enough of a loss to take Baylor out of the field. So that's why I have Baylor out, but as always, they're certainly in the hunt depending on what they do going forward. Big East, I think three teams certainly now are locks. I think one maybe has a little bit more work left to do, but they're certainly heading in the right direction. The three locks to me are Creighton, Doug McDermott. Have you watched him play? Oh my gosh, he is sick. You watch Creighton basketball, you're going to be entertained. Villanova, obviously same story, and Xavier. I think those three teams, with the way their numbers are, very, very high, I think they're going to be all right. Now, Providence certainly is making strides. Providence is very close to being a lock for me because, again, they have two good wins over Creighton and Xavier, two teams that I just said were locks. They're 5-2 in the conference, 15-5 overall. Now, the only thing that could probably improve, they're 2-2 in road games. If the road record gets a little better, I think they'll be okay. One bad loss on the resume to Seton Hall, but other than that, everything looks pretty solid for Providence. For now, I think they're safely in the field, but I don't think they're to lock status just yet. Still a little bit of work left to do for Providence, but I think they're definitely looking very solid at this point. Teams on watch for me, Georgetown. Again, Georgetown, a very odd profile. 3-6 in the conference, 11-9 overall. RPI of 72. Definitely a little bit on the outs, but a strong strength of schedule at 25, so that's always a plus. 2 top 50 wins over Kansas State and VCU, but 2 bad losses to Northeastern with an RPI of almost 200 and Seton Hall. 3-7 against the top 100, 1-4 in true road games. So a lot going against the Hoyas right now. Very fluid situation with them. If they can get at least maybe 1 or 2 more quality wins, I think it could cancel out those losses. They just can't afford a misstep the rest of the way. St. John's, though, just needs quality wins in general. I don't know how St. John's numbers are so high, to tell you the truth. I wish I knew. They're 2-6 in conference. They're 12-9 overall. Their RPI is 75. Their SOS is 35. Really good numbers. Everything else about St. John's, though, is a negative. No top 50 wins. And they had a chance last night to get a win at Creighton, and they let that game get away because of Doug McDermott hitting his buzzer beater at the last minute. Huge missed opportunity for St. John's. 0-6 against the top 50. 0-6. That doesn't get you in the tournament. You're 1-7 against the top 100. You're 1-4 in true road games. 0 quality wins. Look at your quality wins, St. John. 0. You have none. And 2 bad losses. To Penn State? Penn State. You lost to Penn State. And DePaul. Wow. So I don't know how they're still in the top 80 in the RPI, but by my rule, they're on the list. Big Sky, one bid league. Big South, one big bid league. Big Ten. Big Ten, my country. Big Ten. For sure, I'm pretty sure that these 6 teams are going to be locks. I think Big Ten's going to get 6 for sure. Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio State. I think those 6, no matter what happens the rest of the way, I think those 6 are going to be pretty much locked into the field. Now, the only one that might be a concern is Ohio State because they only have 1 top 50 win right now to show for it. Even though they're 16-4, solid computer numbers, they have 1 top 50 win, and their best win is against North Dakota State. Come on, Bucks, beat the big boys. You know, want to be a big boy, beat the big boys. But they lost all of them. That's the thing. They were in that slump. They lost pretty much every big tier team ahead of them. So they got to get some quality wins just to be sure. But I think in the end, at the end of the day, they'll be okay. As for the teams on watch out of the Big Ten, right now, Illinois. The problem with Illinois is too many bad losses and a bad conference record. 2-6 in the conference, RPI of 62, SOS of 54. Only 1 top 50 win, and that's against the Missouri team whose RPI is barely in the top 50. 1-5 in true road games. 3 bad losses, losing to Georgia Tech, Northwestern, and Purdue. So that doesn't help their cause at all. That's why North Illinois right now is far, far down in the pecking order. Indiana, kind of in the same boat, although their profile doesn't look as bad. 3-4 in conference, 13-7 overall, RPI of 66, strength of schedule 50, so decent average, again, average computer numbers, but only one top 50 win that came against Wisconsin. 1-3 in true road games, and oh, by the way, a loss also to Northwestern. What is it about Northwestern? I think Northwestern is angry. They're the only team, they're the only major conference team to never make the NCAA tournament. Ever. Forever. They have never, ever made the NCAA tournament. And now they're putting bad losses on resumes of bubble teams. Grudge much? I think so. But the interesting resume here, and again, one of the oddest that I've seen, is Nebraska. Yes, Nebraska is on the board. Their RPI is 74. Their strength of schedule is 22. Yes, the record is 10-9. I know. Not exactly NCAA tournament record, but you look at their profile, 2 quality wins, beat Ohio State, beat Minnesota. But again, here's the downside of that. 0-6 in true road games. All those wins, all those great wins came at home. 0-6 on the road. And again, 3 bad losses to UAB, Purdue, and Penn State. Can't have that if you're Nebraska. And Nebraska just dismissed their leading scorer off the team for undisclosed reasons. So I don't see Nebraska being on the board for very long. In this case, the bad really outweighs those 2 good wins. So I can't see the Huskers being on the board for too much longer. Then you get into a lot of one-bid leagues here, Big West, Colonial. Now, Conference USA, Southern Miss, I think, is going to be the king of this league at the end of the year. But Louisiana Tech is a team to watch. They're 17-4 right now. Their RPI is at 73. 1 quality win against Oklahoma. They do have 1 bad loss, but they are 5-2 in road games. So, again, they'll probably have to win the conference tournament to get a shot. I don't think they'll have enough as an at-large, but certainly worth watching. Horizon's a one-bid league. Ivy, the MAC, the MAAC, the MEAC, the other MAC, the Mid-American, one bid. Missouri Valley, probably going to be a one-bid league unless Indiana State can get some quality wins under their belt. They're 16-4, RPI of 46, 6-3 in road games. But the problem is, again, no quality wins. They're 0-2 against the top 50, and they got blown out by Wichita State by 20 points earlier in the year. Now, the Mountain West will probably, I think, be a two-bid league. San Diego State, obviously, leading the way right now. But New Mexico also, I think, is going to get into the field. I think their profile's very strong. 7-1 in conference, 16-4 overall, RPI of 24, SOS of 44, 6-1 on the road, a quality win against Cincinnati, who is leading the American Athletics, so definitely strong there. So I think New Mexico is looking really good right now. The two teams to watch out of the Mountain West in terms of bubble stuff are Boise State and Wyoming. Now, Boise State, but again, the problem with these teams, no quality wins between them. They are 0-9 combined against the top 50. That doesn't get you into the tournament. You got to have some big wins. Boise State, 3-3 in the conference, 13-6 overall, RPI of 56, SOS of 61. 0-5 though against the top 50. No wins against the top 100 to show for it. So that's a concern. And then Wyoming, 4-2 in conference, 13-6 overall, RPI of 77, a bad SOS though of 99. 0-4 against the top 50, only one top 100 win, and two bad losses to Denver and Nevada. So a lot of work to do for those two teams there out of the Mountain West. The Northeast is a one-bid league. Ohio Valley, one-bid league. Now the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is very interesting. I think the Pac-12 could potentially get a lot of bids this year. I think for sure, at least in my opinion, the locks for sure, Arizona and UCLA. I think those two for sure are going to be in the field. But there's a lot of intrigue with these other teams that I have. Because right now I have 7 in the field from the Pac-12. I know that's kind of hard to believe, but I have 7 in from the Pac-12 right now. Arizona and UCLA, I think for sure, though, are the 2 locks. I think they've done enough with their numbers very strong and with their profiles. Obviously, Arizona being the #1 team in the country, 20-0 undefeated, 5 top 50 wins, obviously solid enough. But UCLA also has 2 top 50 wins, and their numbers are both in the 20s with RPI and SOS, so I think they're okay. Work left to do, though, for these 5 teams. California, 5-2 conference, 14-6 overall. Numbers pretty average, 47 in the RPI, 72 in strength of schedule. Only 1 top 50 win against an Oregon team that's really starting to struggle. So that win is starting to look a little less and less. They also have a bad loss on the resume to UC Santa Barbara. So, excuse me. So definitely struggling in that regard. But for now, I think they're okay. I mentioned Washington. Right now, they're one of my last 4 teams in the field. 5-3 in conference, 13-8 overall, RPI of 71, and SOS of 55. They do have 2 good wins, but they are against Colorado and Oregon, kind of in that lower tier of teams right now that are in the field. They have 2 bad losses, but again, I really don't count UC Irvine as really a bad loss because they're leading the Big West. They're in the field right now. So, but then Boston College, that loss is kind of their worst one. So, but 2 good wins, 3 against the top 100. Now they are 2-4 on the road, so that's kind of concerning. But again, I think really they're kind of in that. Again, they're kind of hanging by a thread right now. They're in, but that can certainly change depending on what the 4 teams below them do. So Washington, very fluid. Stanford, I think Stanford for now is okay. Certainly, though, that could change depending on what they do. They're 4-3 in conference, 13-6 overall. Average numbers, 53 RPI, 51 SOS. 2 good wins, though, against Connecticut and Oregon. The UConn win looks better than the Oregon win. They do have 1 bad loss to Oregon State, but they are 4-2 in road games. That's a very good stat. So I think Stanford for now is okay. Colorado for now is okay, only because the numbers are so strong. But obviously, the committee is going to take into account what kind of team they are without Spencer Dinwiddie. So they're 4-4 in conference, 15-6 overall, RPI of 23, 6th strongest strength of schedule, so that's what works in their favor. 3 good wins over Harvard. They beat Kansas, which is a great win, and then they beat Oregon. No bad losses, so that works well in their favor. But again, what kind of team are they without Dinwiddie? That's what the committee is going to look at mostly. But for now, they're in. And then there's Oregon, and Oregon definitely now is starting to become more concerning. This was an Oregon team that non-conference play ran through it. We're 12-0, one of the better teams in the country. Now they've fallen on hard times. They're 2-5 in the conference, 14-5 overall. Their numbers only going down a little bit though. RPI of 40, SOS of 47. They do have 1 top 50 win against BYU, who's kind of, again, one of those on-the-fence teams. But they have 6 wins against the top 100, which is very good. Now, things that could be worked on, they have 1 bad loss. They did lose to Oregon State, and they're 3-3 on the road. So, again, very fluid with Oregon, but for now, I think they're okay for the moment. But, again, depending on what everybody else does, that could change. The team that's on watch for me out of the Pac-12 is Arizona State. You look at their resume, 4-3 in the conference, 15-5 overall, RPI of 51. That's decent. SOS of 78. Could be better. 1 top 50 win, but again, that's against a Colorado team that was without Spencer Dinwiddie, so you got to kind of take that into account. But the 3-2 on the road, that's very good. So still a lot of work to do there for Arizona State. I'm not really fully sold on them yet. We'll see what happens as time goes on, but definitely in the watch discussion. Patriot League, 1-bid league. Now the SEC I mentioned. And right now, I would say 2 teams for sure are locks. You could probably guess which 2. Florida and Kentucky. I mean, it's pretty obvious that these 2 are the cream of the crop in the SEC. Florida has 4 top 50 wins. Kentucky has 2. No bad losses on either of their profiles. So I think these 2 are going to be safely in the field. Now, Missouri is my next team that I have. And right now, I have Missouri pretty much safely in the field. The win over Arkansas last week definitely helped matters for them as well. They're 4-3 in conference, 16-4 overall. They did crack the top 50 in RPI at 48. Now, the strength of schedule is the biggest concern for Missouri. It's at 104. It's not exactly very confident in the strength of schedule, but one top 50 win over UCLA, 3-2 in road games. That's very good. They do have one bad loss on the schedule to Georgia, but because of the fact they're playing in a strong conference, top 50 RPI, and a 16-4 record, I think Missouri is okay right now. And then again, I have Tennessee. Tennessee is one of my last 4 teams in the field right now. 3-3 in conference, 12-7 overall. RPI of 55, so that's decent. But their strength of schedule is what gets me. A strong SOS of 18. That's a very good. That shows you the level of play that Tennessee's played against. 2 top 50 wins. They beat Xavier and they beat Virginia, both very good teams. But the concerning thing right now with them, 5-5 in the last 10 games, 1-4 in true road games, and oh, by the way, 2 bad losses to UTEP and Texas A&M. But for now, I think with everything else weighing out of every other team's pros and cons, I think Tennessee for now has barely done enough to be in the field. Teams to watch, Ole Miss. My only concern with Ole Miss, again, the numbers are okay, but again, no top 50 wins. They're 5-1 in conference, and that's good. And the numbers are decent, 57 RPI, 84 SOS, but 0-2 against the top 50, only 2 wins against the top 100, and a bad loss to your rivals in Mississippi State with an RPI of 138. So that is very concerning to me. They're certainly in the discussion, but they got to get some quality wins under their belt. Now, LSU is my first team out right now, as I mentioned. They're very, very close because now they have 2 top 50 wins. The Missouri win now looks better, and the Kentucky win last night was huge. But again, there's still concerns with LSU because they're still 2-3 in true road games. They'll have a bad loss on their resume against Rhode Island, a 132 RPI. They're only 6-4 in their last 10 games, so there's still a lot not to like about LSU. But certainly now with the way they've been playing down the stretch, there's a lot more to like going forward. So if LSU can keep this momentum, if they can get at least maybe 1 or even 2 quality wins under their belt and keep winning games, I think LSU can certainly make a strong case to be in the field. But for now, they're my first team out of the field. Southern, 1-bid league. Southland, 1 bid. Sunbelt, 1 bid. SWAC, 1 bid. Summit, 1 bid. WAC, 1 bid. Now, West Coast Conference is the last one that there's still some debate over. Gonzaga, I think, is a lot. Gonzaga, no matter what happens, whether they win the conference tournament or they don't, I think Gonzaga would still get in potentially as an at-large because the record is strong at 18-3, RPI of 26, 2 top 50 wins right now over St. Mary's and BYU, who's again fighting in the debate as well. 3-1 in road games. I think Gonzaga is still a strong enough team that they would get in as an at-large if they did not win their conference tournament. Now, those same teams they've beaten, St. Mary's and BYU, they are certainly in the discussion. They're on watch, but I think they're farther behind a lot of teams because, again, the resumes are really bad, okay? These resumes are really bad because St. Mary's, 16-5 overall record, that's good. RPI 43, SOS of 64, that's good. 1 top 50 win against North Dakota State, not so much. Now, 7 top 100 wins, that's good. But again, 4 bad losses. 4. South Carolina, Hawaii, George Mason, and Santa Clara. And Santa Clara is the worst. Their RPI, 203. Ugly resume for St. Mary's. Got a lot of work to do. Same with BYU. And their resume might be even as uglier as than St. Mary's. 5-4 conference record. 13-9 overall. An RPI of 50. Good. An SOS of 21. Excellent. 1-5 against the top 50. Not so much. The win is a good quality win. It came against Texas, a Texas team that's on the rise. That's good. But again, 4 bad losses. Utah, Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine, and Portland. And Gonzaga even lost to Portland. Portland. RPI, the RPIs of those teams, 127, 143, 121, and 163. Yeah, needless to say, BYU's got a lot of work to do. All right, so that's where the cases are made right now for all these different teams. So now that we've gone through the cases and now that we've gone through those, let's reveal the bracket. This is it. This is now the second projection that I've made. Right now, as of today, January 29th, this is my second bracket projection. Number 1 seeds, Arizona, Syracuse, Kansas, Michigan State. I think those 4 right now. Now, you can make a case probably for Michigan as well as a number 1 concern. They beat Michigan State, but right now, Michigan State's RPI is higher than Michigan's. So that's why they're a little bit higher on the line. But Michigan's certainly in discussion for a higher seed if they play better as the season goes along. All right, starting with the West region and the West region, the semifinals will be in Anaheim, California. Top overall seed, obviously, is Arizona out of the Pac-12. I have them taking on the 16th seed Utah Valley out of the WAC. Right now, Utah Valley is undefeated in the WAC right now. They're 6-0 in conference play. So right now, they have the upper hand leading that conference right now, so they would get that last spot, but not be in a play-in game out of the WAC. The 8-9 matchup that I have, this would be a really entertaining one. Texas, out of the Big 12, that surging team, going up against Florida State out of the ACC. That would certainly be a very entertaining 8-9 matchup. I'd be intrigued to see how those two clash with each other. So if I had to pick it, I'd probably lean Texas right now, just based on the fact of how well they're playing. But that one could go either way. The 5-12 would be Louisville out of the American taking on Green Bay out of the Horizon League. Green Bay right now is perfect in the Horizon League. They'll probably run through the Horizon League the rest of the way. The Horizon is exactly a big challenge this year. I've watched one Green Bay game, and I was very impressed by how they play. The Horizon League is known for its low-scoring games, kind of defensive-minded conference, but excuse me. But I think they'd certainly be able to match that game with Louisville. But that would be the 5-12 matchup in that region. And the 4-13, I have Iowa out of the Big Ten taking on Mercer, who currently leads the Atlantic Sun Conference. 6-11, Virginia out of the ACC. Are they for real? Are they a legitimate team to really make maybe a potential run in the tournament? I am opening up against the 11th seed Southern Miss, who currently leads Conference USA. 3-14, San Diego State, who currently leads the Mountain West, taking on the 14th seed Georgia State, who currently leads the Sun Belt Conference, also perfect right now in the Sun Belt. Though Georgia State has had some really close games of late in the Sun Belt, so I'm not sure if they're the real deal or not. But again, time will tell as the season goes on. But certainly that would be intriguing to see what they do the rest of the way. The 7-10 that I have would be a fun Big East throwback. Oh, this would be awesome. Connecticut of the American going up against Providence of the Big East. Oh, that would be an entertaining matchup. I remember watching the old Big East, and it's going to be tough this year because, you remember watching the old Big East tournaments at Madison Square Garden. Of course, now the new Big East has and the American will have their own. But those days of watching those tournaments were fun. They were fun to watch. I love watching those games. And sometimes these teams, I think both these teams made deep runs as lower seeds, 8 or 9 seeds. So that would be an entertaining first-round game to watch. And I would not be surprised if the way they played lately, if Providence would win that game. It'd be an entertaining one to watch. So UConn's got a lot of talented players too. So that'd be a fun one. And then the 2-15 I have is Wisconsin out of the Big Ten taking on the current leader out of the Big West, the Anteaters of UC Irvine. You want to watch lightning basketball, just watch Wisconsin. Their game is very low scoring as well. Join the Horizon League with Green Bay. See how they do there. They probably run through it. Okay, on to the Midwest region. The semifinal games would be, of course, at Lucas Oil in Indianapolis. Top seed there, of course, I mentioned Michigan State out of the Big Ten. And they would get the winner of one of the two opening round games, either the Southern Jaguars out of the SWAC or the Winthrop Eagles out of the Big South. Southern has pretty much led the SWAC all season long. They're kind of the team that was wrapped up in that controversy. I don't know if you guys read about it, about playing that, like, I forget who the school was, like Champion Baptist Academy or something like that, and they beat them like 160 something to 12 or something like that, and it got a lot of hype and negative stuff, like why was this game even played? Why are they scheduling this team? So Southern got a lot of flack for that, but you play the teams on your schedule. And the Big South with Winthrop leading right now, the Big South has definitely changed a lot. I remember my first bracket 2 weeks ago, Radford was leading the Big South. Now they're not because they got beat by Campbell. So right now it's Campbell leading one division and Winthrop leading the other. And then and also briefly last week, UNC Asheville was leading the Big South. So now it's Winthrop. So usually it's the SWAC and the Big South in the playing games anyway. We kind of tended to see that over the years. So they tend to be your weaker conferences. The 8-9, George Washington out of the A-10 taking on Kansas State out of the Big 12. George Washington has been a nice resurgent story this year to see them do very well. Really, G-Dub has not been a very you don't really see them in the tournament in a whole lot of years, but it's nice to see them get revitalized now. And in fact, they're playing very well. So nice to see them up in the hunt. And Kansas State as well always has tended to do well in the Big 12, and then they usually make the tournament come March. 5-12 game, Pitt out of the ACC, taking on the winner of one of my opening round games. That would be the SMU-Washington game. And right now, if that game were to happen right now, I would probably lean Washington, just because of the fact that I think Southern Methodist has kind of been in a slump lately. So not, just again, like really kind of hit or miss. I think Washington is more solid now than SMU is right now. So that's the way I see that game right now for the most part. And then my 4-13 match, Kentucky, the SEC taking on Toledo, the current leaders out of the Mid-American Conference. And the Rockets, surprisingly, have a very high RPI. Their RPI is like 37, which is really high for a MAC team. So interesting to see that they're doing that well. So that, I don't know, that maybe could be a scare for Kentucky. I doubt it, but you never know come March. You got to pick those upsets. You never know. And the right upsets, too. My 6-11, boy, wouldn't this one be fun. This is an in-state rivalry pretty much. St. Louis out of the A-10 taking on Missouri out of the SEC. Wouldn't that be a great in-state rivalry game? Oh, that'd be awesome. I would really like to see that one. Missouri plays that tough style of defense, but then again, so does St. Louis, and they have offensive talent as well. So that would be that'd be an entertaining game. I wouldn't be shocked if Missouri pulled the upset in that game if it were to play out like that. To be quite honest with you, my 3-14 Michigan again out of the Big Ten, looking very impressive. I have them taking on Delaware, currently leading the Colonial Association with an undefeated conference record right now. And the Blue Hens RPI is also very high, like 68, I think. So good for them. 7-10 match. Gonzaga, currently leading the West Coast, taking on Oregon out of the Pac-12. And again, I think that one could really go either way, too. Two very well-rounded offensive teams there going at it. So that one could be a good matchup. And then the 2-15, Villanova, currently second in the Big East, would be the 2 seed, taking on Stony Brook, the current undefeated conference leader out of the America East. I have seen Stony Brook play this year. Very solid shooting team. If they get in a rhythm, they destroyed Vermont a couple weeks ago, or not a week ago. I watched them play that game, and I tell you what, they're a very strong shooting team. Don't be surprised if they maybe give a higher seed a run for their money. All right, East region. Games to be played, semifinal games, regional games at New York. Top seed, Syracuse, obviously, strong, undefeated team. I have them taking on North Carolina Central. They're the current leaders out of the MEAC, which is, again, another conference that has changed its conference leaders a lot in recent weeks. But right now, NC Central leading the way there. The 8-9 would be an interesting one. And again, this depends on what team Colorado is in light of the Dinwiddie injury. But my 8-9 right now is Minnesota against Colorado. And Minnesota also looked very, very impressive this season as well. So that could be, depending on what team Colorado is, that could be either a one-sided affair, or if Colorado plays better down the stretch, it could actually be, excuse me, a pretty decent game. Message I just got. Hang on. No, my mom. Gosh, it's taking forever. Okay. All right. Excuse me. I'll have to pardon the cough a little bit. I've been last week I was taking Dayquil a few days in a row to get over a cough and a sore throat. So I'm slowly getting. I'm mostly over it, but it's kind of maybe I don't know, trying to come back or it's just lingering. I don't know. But Minnesota, Colorado, I think that'd be a fun 8-9 matchup. 5-12 would be a fun kind of East Coast matchup here. UMass out of the A-10 taking on Harvard, the current leader of the Ivy League. I don't think Harvard really is going to be challenged in the Ivy League all that much this year. I think they'll get the automatic bid right away. So, but UMass looks strong this year, so that could be a fun matchup. Don't fall asleep on Harvard. They've done well. Ivy League teams tend to surprise a couple times, so don't be surprised if that happens. And then the 4-13, Iowa State out of the Big 12, taking on North Dakota State out of the current leaders of the Summit League, who, by the way, also very high RPI, like 48 or 58, I think. So that could be a dangerous team to watch as well. 6-11 match, Ohio State out of the Big Ten taking on the winner of one of the opening round games I have between Richmond and Tennessee. Personally, if it were me, I would love to see Tennessee play Ohio State. Konzo Martin taking on a Big Ten team. Ooh, that'd be fun. Fun! Remember my video game video. I think that'd be a fun matchup to watch, but wouldn't be surprised if Richmond won that game either because they've looked really, really well of late. By 3-14, Oklahoma State out of the Big 12 taking on Canisius, the current leaders of the MAAC. That's the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. The battle really is there, though, with like three teams in that conference, with Canisius, Manhattan, and Iona. Those three teams are really, really battling for the top spot in that conference, so it's kind of changed on a week-to-week basis. But right now, the Golden Griffins have the advantage. The 7-10, this would be an entertaining one, I think. Memphis out of the American, who I have on TV right now, taking on Cal out of the Pac-12. I think that'd be a very entertaining matchup there of two very good offensive teams. And then the 2-15 matchup, Wichita State, still unbeaten out of the Missouri Valley, taking on American, the current undefeated team out of the, undefeated conference-wise team out of the Patriot League. They're kind of battling with Boston University for the top spot. They're a game ahead right now. And finally, the South region, the semifinal games we played at FedEx Forum in Memphis. Kansas, top seed right there out of the Big 12. I have them playing the winner of one of the play-in games between Robert Morris, currently leading the Northeast Conference, and Chattanooga, currently leading the SoCon, the Southern Conference. They're both perfect in their leagues right now as well. So right now, they look to be the two top teams in those conferences. Again, it could change. The conference tournaments could have a different outcome, but for now, looks like they are destined right now to go to the opening round in Dayton, just based on right now. 8-9, another fun matchup. Boy, some of these are really fun. This would be entertaining. Xavier of the Big East going up against VCU from the Atlantic 10. And that would be, I mean, you want to talk about maybe a battle of aggression. Xavier, known for their, I think, more fast style of play. VCU, that havoc defense. That'd be a fun 8-9 matchup. At Kansas, they'd probably be screaming for that matchup. Oh, gee, if we wouldn't have to play VCU again. Kansas gets bad draws. Have you noticed that? Kansas gets bad draws. 5-12, Cincinnati out of the American taking on Stanford out of the Pac-12. That would probably be more in favor of Cincinnati. Stanford's one of those teams, again, that's just kind of barely in right now, which is why they're on the 12 line. 4-13, this could be actually a very scary one. Duke out of the ACC taking on Belmont from the Ohio Valley. Belmont is always kind of known to be a sharpshooting team. If they get into rhythm, they're tough to stop. And Duke is known to crash out early a couple times, so that one would be certainly fun. 6-11, this would be entertaining as well. Oklahoma out of the Big 12 taking on North Carolina from the ACC. Boy, that one would be hard to pick. That one would really be tough. And I might lean Carolina because I watched Carolina play recently, and it was Carolina playing Clemson, and that was the team that Clemson just did not look like a tournament team, and Carolina blew them out of the water with James Michael McAdoo. That guy is sick. That's a sick player right there, or as Dick Vitale would say, a PTPer. McAdoo went off, O-F-F off on Clemson, and that was just fun to watch. So North Carolina right now, even though not great in the ACC, very scary under the radar team. 3-14, Creighton out of the Big East taking on Stephen F. Austin from the Southland, who's currently undefeated in the Southland. They usually make the tournament out of the Southland, so that would be, again, nice to see them back in again. 7-10, UCLA out of the Pac-12 taking on New Mexico from the Mountain West. And finally, the 2-15, Florida from the SEC taking on Northern Colorado, the current leaders of the Big Sky. All right, guys, that's it. That's my current bracket projection and breakdown of the bubble teams and the conferences for this January 29th. The next one will probably, again, the next projection, what I try to do is I tend to really kind of update the first 4 in, last 4 out every single day. And I don't know if you guys want me to maybe post that on the channel on a daily basis every single day. Let me know if you do or don't. But right now, like I said, I'll try to make bracket projections every couple weeks, but then as we get closer to conference tournament time, then I'll start putting out on a more weekly basis and then on a daily basis as automatic bids are clinched. So really in these next couple weeks, so the next one for sure will be in 2 weeks, which will be then on, let's see, 2 weeks from today would be the 12th of February? Yes, the 12th of February. And oh, by the way, I'm off that day. And I'm off that day. How perfect does that work out? So the 12th of February, that will be the next bracket projection that I'll put on the channel on here. And I'm hoping next week, looks like it could probably be either Tuesday. I'll try to shoot for either Tuesday or Wednesday evening. I want to post the first video for the Jaguars quarterback quest. I'm going to start delving into these quarterbacks, looking at maybe the first 3 or 4 names on the list. Probably do the first 4. Probably do the first 4 quarterbacks in the class that I find on the list. Look at their game film, pros and cons, what I like and don't like about them, and then I'll try to put that first video up. Probably then the week before I do the next bracket projection. So that is where things shape up on that. So thank you guys again for watching. Again, if you have any comments, questions about the brackets or some teams that you might want to consider or make cases for, just leave them in the comments below. Start a discussion, start a debate, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week for the first edition of the Jaguars quarterback quest, and then the week after for another Tracking the Madness bracket. Thanks, guys. God bless.